welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. We're going to get right on into our program on today. I hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right, we're going to get right on in our program today. Our program today, we're going to be talking about coming out of a toxic relationship. Coming out of a toxic relationship. There's so many people that are going through things that were in abusive relationships or toxic relationships. Doesn't necessarily mean that they were always physical relationships. It could have just been mentally abused as well as physically abused as well. We're talking about those that are coming out of those relationships because for some reasons, if you notice, a lot of people that come out of those relationships, they always end up in another relationship similar to the toxic relationship. And it seems like some young ladies or even our young men are attracted to attracted to the same type of people, or the same type of people are attracted to them, and they get caught up in these negative relationships. And what happens when you get caught up in these negative relationships? It kind of lingers on after you've come out of the relationships. That's what we talked about so many times on the program about getting you some help or getting counseling when you come out of a toxic relationship, because first of all, you can't come out of one relationship and jump into another one. When you come out of those toxic relationships, take some time for you. Work on you before you get into another relationship. Because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? You're going to end up in the same or a similar type of relationship. And it happens so many times. And you see these young ladies or young men, and you wonder why they always end up with the same type people. You know, if they was in a relationship or if they came from a toxic family environment. For instance, if they came from an environment where one or more of the parents were alcoholics, they seem to be attracted to that same type of person, and end up in a relationship in the same type of people, and the cycle goes on. Just like some of the cycles that are started or curses that you call family curses or generational curses, the word I want to use, where you see some of our young ladies that mother was never married, the grandmother was never married. They all, were in relationships where they weren't married, and then it continues on, and it's the same type with the toxic relationships, and it seems to continue on. If you saw that those things that were happening in your home, or you grew up with abusive parents or parents abusing each other, or there were chaos in the home, then you tend to go into the same type of relationship. And the reason why is because a lot of times you can't let those things go, or you can't close those chapters in your life. You have to make sure that those chapters are closed. That's the same thing as when you become a Christian. When you become a Christian, you dedicate your life to the Lord, or you turn your life over to the Lord, or as they say, you get saved, or you become a child of God. Or if you don't let go of those past relationships, you're going to be going back and forth even in your Christian walk. You're going to be going back and forth. That's why you have to let toxic people go. Even when you become a Christian, sometimes you have to let your so-called friends go. And when you are in a relationship, a toxic relationship, you have to work on yourself when you come out of those relationships. Seek counseling. Especially if you were in a mentally or physically abusive relationship where it was, it was a knockdown, drag out mentally or physically. Get you some help so you can close those chapters. And a lot of times you end up in those same type of relationship because you never close the chapter from the toxic relationship. We have to learn to close those chapters. And that's even when you become a child of God. You have to close those chapters so you can get past the hurts, and a lot of people can't get past the hurt because they continue in that same thing. They keep going into relationships where they keep getting hurt and they keep running into the same type of men, and you even hear women admitting to it. Oh, I want me a thug. That doesn't even make sense. Grow up. Come on. Yeah, what are you that you're getting into the same relationship that you were in before. And guess what? When you get your little thug, as you call it, it's going to be the same type of relationship that you were in before. So we have to make sure that we are not repeating. You're supposed to learn from your mistakes. When you make those mistakes, they are there so as a learning tool. When you get past those mistakes, you should not be repeating them. Close that chapter in your life. Get rid of that. Put closure on that. Don't go trying to find. Even though he might have had some good qualities, don't go looking for those qualities that you saw in an abusive relationship with someone else, because you might get that negativity that was in that relationship along with that new relationship. First of all, like I said before, take some time for yourself, work on yourself, get yourself together. And the same thing, this goes for men and women, because sometimes guys are in toxic relationships where the lady that they were in or the wife they was in, it ended up being a toxic relationship, uh, a really bad divorce, or go get you some help and work on yourself, because when you work on yourself, you will be ready to move on to another relationship. You can't go to another relationship if you're not working on yourself, or if you have not worked on yourself. You are important. Make sure you take care of you. Don't jump to another relationship when you come out of a toxic relationship, because trust me, those wounds are still there. Those wounds are still open. Allow yourself time to heal. That's why when you see an athlete, he get injured, they go on the injured reserve list. Put yourself on the injured reserve list. They allow themselves on the injured reserve list, and they do things. They go to therapy, physical therapy. See, this is where you go to mental therapy. When you go to mental therapy, you begin to build yourself back up until your body is strong enough to go to another relationship and to compete again when you are a athlete. That's why they have so many people that are on the injury reserve. They don't go back right away. They work on themselves, and that's what you have to do when you come out of a toxic relationship where you have those open wounds. You have to close those wounds. Take the opportunity to close those wounds from those toxic relationships, and and then then you will be able to hear from God, because when you come out of those toxic relationships, you're not hearing from God. You're hearing from your flesh, or you're hearing from your head, not your heart. So you have to make sure that we are closing these chapters. Uh, and then you see me, and like we was talking about, attracted to the same type of purpose. Work on yourself. Get counseling. If you need counseling, seek some counseling so you can come out of those relationships and close those wounds. Because a lot of people that are wounded are still wounded, and they go into another relationship. And even when they find someone that's not toxic, they might find Mr. Right, or they might find their soulmate, but they're not ready for their soulmate at that moment. So they have those same suspicions that are not even necessary with the soulmate, because they never closed the chapter in a previous or a toxic relationship. And they still have those open wounds. That's why you have to allow yourself time for those wounds to heal. And once those wounds are healed, you can go to another relationship in your life. You can go to another relationship and you'll be able to move on. That's why it's so hard sometimes for people to move on when they come out of those relationships, because they don't close those chapters. It's very important to close that book. Don't hang on to stuff that came from a toxic relationship. Oh, he gave me this, he gave me that. Get rid of that stuff, because every time you look at it, it's gonna remind you of that. And and it's bad enough when you have children from those toxic relationships. A lot of times your children are even remind you of that. So you have to make sure that you get the help, so your children won't be, where you going around angry at your children, or angry because you don't get help from your ex. Your ex is a ex for a reason. Don't go hanging around them. I mean, if you have a child, you deal with them on the as least as possible. Just deal with them on the child's basis, for the welfare of the child. You don't have to go to his events and all that, because what are you doing that for? You haven't closed those chapters, and we have to learn how to close those chapters so we can move on. And when you're able to move on, just because God has given you a soulmate does not mean that you are ready for a soulmate. Let me repeat that. Just because God sends you a soulmate does not mean that you are ready for a soulmate. That's why you have to work on you, so you will be ready when God sends you a soulmate. You'll learn how to appreciate that soulmate. You won't take them for granted. You won't be suspicious of everything they're doing. You won't be jealous hearted, because you know that that's your soulmate, and he's not like Mr. X. Let's call him Mr. X. He's not like Mr. X. This is a new beginning for you. And you have to have that. In order for you to have the new beginning or to start another book, you have to close the chapter on the old book. Because if you don't, you're going to be referencing that old book every time you look into the new book. So you have to make sure that we are working on yourself and coming out of a toxic relationship. This is Pastor Larry. We're going to be signing off, and we want you to make sure that you work on you when you're coming out of those toxic relationships. It's very, very important. Ladies, gentlemen, make sure you are working on yourself. And if you have counseling or people that are open in your church or people that's been married for a while, talk to them. Get positive things on marriage, even though you might have came out of something negative. Make sure you talk to someone that has a positive relationship, or they've been there where you have and they've moved on. Learn how to move on, but you can't move on again until you close those books. And we've talked about it some time ago in the past on the program about closing those chapters from negative or toxic relationships, because they'll jump out of one toxic relationship and get into another toxic relationship, and that by all means is not good. Make sure that we are closing the chapter on these relationships. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing out, but before we sign off, I want to thank Pastor Hall. We went and visited them this past Sunday, had a wonderful time at Pastor Hall's church. Amen. And we just enjoyed ourselves over there. We don't get out that much. Being a pastor myself, I don't get out that much to visit. But we had the opportunity to visit at Pastor Hall's church. And I can't remember the name of the church right now, but, But we had a wonderful time at Pastor Hall's church. Amen. And we want you to make sure that you find a church home that you can be comfortable in, find a church home that you both agree on. And we've said that a lot of times on the program as well. Make sure that you are going to church together, getting that help that you need when you're coming out of a toxic relationship. And I want to take the opportunity right now to invite you out to our services at New Zion Christian Center. Right now we are located at 15014 Desplaines Street in Plainfield, Illinois. Our services begin Sunday morning at 11 a.m. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again, I'm going to be signing off with Let's Talk Marriage. All right, all right, all right, all right. All right, all right. Amen. Amen. Yes, yes. Oh, I want to give shout out again to Pastor Hall's church. I remember the name now. Morning Star Christian Assembly over in Harvey, Illinois. We had a wonderful time out there. Thank you, Pastor Hall, Sister Hall. We love you guys, and God bless you. Until we meet again on Let's Talk Marriage. All right, all right.